Some murders end in cold case files. But others never end at all. In every town, behind locked doors and shuttered windows, there are stories that were never meant to be told. Stories of blood, guilt, and things that move when no one is watching. Tonight, we're not just talking about murders. We're unraveling the kind that shouldn't have been possible. Cases where logic failed, and something darker took its place. You've heard of revenge. You've heard of hauntings. But what happens when the two become one? When the victim doesn't rest, and the killer isn't alone in the room anymore. We call them supernatural murders. Crimes soaked not just in blood, but in whispers from beyond. Every detective who dared to investigate these cases said the same thing. The air felt wrong. The clock stopped. The silence had a heartbeat. And as you listen tonight, remember this: these are not ghost stories. These are case files, real names, real places, real deaths, and evidence that cannot be explained. Because sometimes, the crime scene doesn't stay still. Sometimes, the victim calls back. You're about to enter a world where the line between the living and the dead is thin enough to bleed through. So, lock your doors. Dim the lights. And whatever you do, don't listen too closely to the whispers. Tonight, on Midnight Tales, we dive deep into murder cases with creepy supernatural twists. Do you believe a spirit can return for revenge? Let's find out. Subscribe to Midnight Tales and join us in our next episode as we uncover the ones who haunt the living. There are places that seem peaceful until the silence starts to breathe back at you. Hollow Creek, population 1,142, a quiet stretch of farmland and forest tucked along the backroads of Missouri. But in the spring of 1998, something ancient woke beneath its soil, something that still calls out when the moon rises. They called it the Hollow Creek Disappearance. It began with a newlywed couple, Thomas and Lila Granger. They'd moved into a small cabin near the water, looking for peace, solitude, and a place to start their life together. Locals said they were kind. Always smiling. Until one night, Lila made a call to 911, whispering that someone was outside their window. Hollow Creek had always been an ordinary place, the kind of town where you could leave your door unlocked, where the sheriff knew every name and every dog by heart. But the week the Grangers moved in, the town changed. Fishermen complained about fog thickening over the water even on clear days. Children said they heard crying in the woods at night. And one farmer, an old man named Walter Pike, swore he saw someone standing in the creek at midnight, waist deep in the water, just staring toward the Granger's cabin. Most folks brushed it off as superstition. But Lila kept hearing it: soft knocks on the cabin walls, whispers from the forest, a lullaby sung in a voice that wasn't hers. On April 12th, Thomas's brother came to visit. He found the cabin door open, dinner still on the table. And no sign of the couple. Police combed the woods for hours. Then, at dawn, an officer spotted something by the creek, a shape lying in the reeds. It was Thomas. Face pale, eyes open, body cold. No signs of a struggle, no wounds, and no footprints leading to or away from where he lay. But Lila was gone. Her clothes, her shoes, her wedding ring, all still inside the cabin. The case turned from a disappearance to something darker. Detective Mara Ellis led the case. A rational, seasoned officer who didn't believe in ghosts, at least, not yet. She set up camp near the creek, reviewing every recording, every photo, every inch of evidence. But things didn't add up. Her voice recorder picked up faint whispers during interviews, words no one in the room had said. The strange part? The phrase kept repeating, always in the same tone, always at 3:07 a.m. And each time she tried to delete the recording, it reappeared, on a new tape. Locals said it was Lila. That she hadn't left, that she was still searching for Thomas. Others claimed something had taken her place. When forensic specialists developed the photos taken at the creek, they found something none of them could explain. In every image of the water's edge, a handprint appeared, faint, translucent, and inverted, as though pressed from beneath the surface. The problem? It didn't match any living person's fingerprints in the database. One lab tech quit that night. Another claimed he saw a woman's reflection in the photo paper, though no one else was in the room. And Detective Ellis, she stopped sleeping. By midsummer, the case was officially cold. Nobody. No signs of foul play. No logical reason for what had happened. Ellis resigned from the force a few weeks later. Locals said she left town, moved to another state, but sometimes, hikers near Hollow Creek swear they've seen her. A lone figure in a long coat, standing near the water, whispering a woman's name. And every year, when the fog is thick and the moon is full, campers report hearing something else. A woman's voice, crying softly from the forest. Calling for help. And when they answer, the woods go completely silent. The official report still lists it as an unsolved disappearance. But if you ask the people of Hollow Creek, they'll tell you something different. They'll tell you the creek remembers. That once you hear her voice, it never forgets yours. What would you do if you heard a voice calling your name from the woods? Comment your thoughts below, and stay tuned. In 1998, the year Hollow Creek fell silent, another story was unfolding, this time in the heart of the city. Rosewood Heights, an aging apartment block built in the 1950s, 13 floors high, infamous for its broken elevators, flickering lights, and walls that carried whispers through their cracks. But it wasn't the building's condition that made it a legend. It was what happened on the 13th floor. In apartment 13. The tenants were 3 roommates, all college students, all working late-night jobs to cover rent. Their names were Rachel Moran, Devon Hale, and Sophie Tran. According to neighbors, they were ordinary. Quiet. Friendly. But a week before they vanished, residents began reporting strange noises, furniture moving when no one was home, laughter echoing from empty rooms, and one terrifying pattern. The lights on the 13th floor flickered every night at exactly 3:03 a.m. A tenant across the hall, Mrs. Alvarez, said she saw shadows moving behind their curtains 3 nights in a row, long after the police had already sealed the door. She swore someone was still inside. When officers forced entry into apartment 13, the smell of smoke hit them first, not fire, but burned wax. The living room looked untouched. Except for the floor. In the center, a large circle drawn in ash and salt. All 3 roommates were missing. For 3 days, the police scoured the city. Then, on the 4th, they found Sophie Tran, the youngest, sitting in the basement of a nearby building. She was alive. But she wouldn't speak. Her hands trembled as she wrote the same word over and over again, below. Medical reports said she was physically fine, no injuries, no trauma to the vocal cords. But her eyes. She kept staring toward the floor whenever anyone said the word 13. Detectives traced every tenant who had lived in apartment 13. 8 names in total, spanning 2 decades. Every single one had either moved out suddenly, or disappeared without explanation. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Behind a false wall in the building's basement, a section sealed off since the 1970s, police found a small chamber made of reinforced concrete. Inside was a ritual circle drawn in red, surrounded by candles long melted into the floor. On the wall, faint words carved by hand. The door was opened. Traces of blood matched 3 former residents. The same 3 who had disappeared 20 years earlier. The building's blueprints had no record of this chamber. Officially, it was never there. Detective Ellis, the same woman who once worked the Hollow Creek case, was brought in as a consultant. Her experience with the unexplainable made her a reluctant expert. But even she wasn't prepared for what the security footage revealed. At 3:03 a.m., the hallway camera captured something impossible. The door to apartment 13, sealed and padlocked by police, slowly opened on its own. Figures, blurry, tall, and slow, walked out. 4 of them. But only 3 were ever recorded walking in. Experts claimed it was a glitch. But when they tried to replay the footage, the data corrupted itself. Every attempt to restore it produced the same result, a loop of the door opening endlessly. And the faint sound of a woman humming in the background. After weeks of failed containment, the city ordered Rosewood Heights to be demolished. But before the wrecking crew arrived, one worker reported hearing a voice through the vents, whispering his name. He quit the next morning. On demolition day, the camera crew caught something strange. As the wrecking ball hit the side of the building, the feed glitched. And for a fraction of a second, the 13th floor window lit up. Someone, or something, was standing there. Watching. When the dust settled, the basement was gone. No remains, no signs of the chamber, nothing. But the crew swore they heard faint screams echoing beneath the rubble. Like the building itself was mourning its fall. Rosewood Heights is now a parking lot. But those who park there overnight say the lights of their cars flicker on their own. Some hear an elevator bell ding, even though no elevators remain. And a few claim, when they look into their rearview mirrors, they see an apartment door closing behind them. No one's sure what really happened inside apartment 13. The files are sealed, the footage destroyed. But one message was found scratched into the last surviving tape. The door only closes when someone enters. Would you spend one night in apartment 13? Out here, the road never ends, it just swallows what the world forgets. Route 87 cuts through the desert like a scar, endless miles of asphalt, heat, and silence. But for truckers who drive the night shift, there's one stretch they refuse to cross after midnight. They call it mile marker 47, where a woman in white still waits for a ride she never finished. The first report came in 2003. A long-haul driver named Bill Carter radio dispatch at 2:14 a.m., saying he'd just picked up a stranded motorist, a young woman wearing a torn white dress, standing barefoot on the shoulder of Route 87. She said she'd been in a car accident and needed to get home. Dispatch heard him promise, "I'll get you there safe." 10 minutes later, his truck was found idling on the side of the road, door open, headlights still burning. Bill was gone. When officers found his body 2 miles away, his face was calm, eyes open, hands still gripping an invisible steering wheel. The autopsy revealed something no one could explain. On the steering wheel of his truck were 2 perfect fingerprints, belonging to a woman named Emily Harper. Emily died in 1991, in a car crash at the exact same spot. She'd been 23. A small-town waitress headed to Phoenix to start over. She never made it. Locals say she lost control on a rainy night, that her car flipped 3 times before bursting into flames. But what haunts them most isn't how she died. It's that her body was never recovered. Only the engagement ring she'd been wearing was found, melted into the road's surface. Over the next decade, 5 more truckers were found dead along the same 10-mile stretch. Each time, investigators discovered fingerprints matching Emily Harper. Each time, the vehicle was found running, driver's door open, passenger seat wet, as if someone had just climbed in after the rain. Detective Ryan Moore reopened the case in 2011. He mapped every death, every disappearance, every witness statement. All pointed to mile marker 47. He called it the Phantom Loop, a repeating cycle of tragedy tied to the same ghostly hitchhiker. In 2013, a dashcam video went viral. A young driver live streaming his road trip on Route 87 captured something that froze viewers around the world. At 3:07 a.m., his headlights illuminated a figure standing motionless in the center of the highway, long hair, white dress, arms at her sides. He swerved, screaming. But when he looked back, the road was empty. Police recovered the car the next morning, crashed into a guardrail. The driver was alive but in shock, muttering one phrase over and over, "She was already inside." Forensic teams found a single long strand of hair on the passenger seat. DNA matched Emily Harper. 12 years dead. Yet her presence was undeniable. By 2017, Route 87 was nearly abandoned at night. Drivers avoided it, freight companies rerouted deliveries. The county erected a white cross at mile marker 47 with the inscription, "In memory of all who were lost." But the accidents never stopped. Every year on April 12, the night Emily died, someone crashes within half a mile of that cross. Witnesses say they see a woman waving for help. Some claim she smiles when they slow down. Others say she looks terrified, pointing behind them, as if something worse is coming. Detective Moore retired in 2020. In his final report, he wrote one chilling line. "The road wants her back, and it takes whoever stops to listen." Today, Route 87 remains open. Travelers still take it, usually those who don't believe in ghost stories. But truckers say, if you drive it after midnight and see a woman in white waving by the roadside, keep your eyes forward. Don't slow down. Because those who stop never make it past mile marker 47. Would you stop if you saw her on the road? 1976, the town of Ashford had always been quiet, until Sunday the church burned. St. Augustine's was a small congregation, tucked along a forgotten road, known for its midnight prayers and solemn hymns. In the morning after the fire, there was no one left inside. Every parishioner, men, women, children, vanished as if the flames had swallowed them whole. And the pastor, Reverend Elijah Kane, was gone too. The fire department arrived to find smoke and ash. But something was off. Every door and window of the church was locked from the inside. Flames licked the ceiling, yet no one escaped. Locals whispered that the pastor had a dark influence over his flock. Strange sermons, late-night meetings in the basement, and the sound of chanting that would continue long after services ended. The town was stunned. Officials suspected arson. Investigators questioned Reverend Kane's assistants, but no one knew where he had gone. Days later, ashes were collected from the altar. Among them, a small notebook. Inside, passages from Kane's last sermon were scribbled in a spidery hand. Authorities charged Reverend Kane with mass murder, arson, and negligence. But before trial, he disappeared without a trace. Locals claimed they saw him walking along the burned-out church at night, muttering to himself. Others swore the flames had left handprints on his skin, burns shaped like crosses that never healed. Detectives found recordings of Kane's final sermon. When played, the tapes were distorted, his voice doubled, tripled, layered with guttural tones not belonging to any human. He spoke of sin, of salvation, and of purifying the unfaithful, over and over, as if something else was controlling him. In 1983, a paranormal investigation team entered the ruins. They brought thermal cameras, EVP recorders, and EMF meters. As they walked through the charred nave, their equipment reacted violently. Readings spiked without reason. And then, the recordings began. Faint screams overlapped with distant hymns, as if the congregation was still inside, trapped between life and death. One investigator swore he saw the pastor kneeling before the altar, but he was translucent, hovering over the ashes. The camera caught nothing, but the smell of incense and charred wood lingered. Since then, locals have reported strange occurrences every Easter. Ash crosses appear on doors overnight, sometimes multiple crosses, drawn with a substance that smells of burnt wood and iron. People who attempt to remove them report waking to find them back the next morning, larger and darker than before. Some say it's a warning. Others insist it's punishment. Reverend Kane has never been seen again. But the voices remain, calling from the ruins, from the ash, from the wind. And every Easter, the townspeople remember what he once said. Only through fire are the faithful cleansed, only through ash are the unworthy spared. The Church of Ashes is gone, rebuilt as a community hall decades later, but the legend persists. People who walk past after dark report hearing pews creak, doors slam, and chanting rising from the floorboards. Some even claim that ash crosses appear on the newly painted walls, perfectly formed, overnight, as if the fire had never ended. Was it madness that controlled Cain? Or something darker, speaking through him, guiding him to destroy and punish? The files were sealed, the recordings stored in a vault, and yet the town lives in perpetual caution, a town where faith, fear, and fire are intertwined forever. Every Easter, families check their doors, praying that no new cross has appeared. Tourists avoid the area after dusk. But if you ever wander near Ashford at night, and the wind smells of smoke and burnt wood, you might hear it. Faint chanting, flickering candlelight, and a voice whispering, "Cleanse the unfaithful." Was it madness, or something darker that spoke through him? 2012, a modern city, filled with glass towers and neon lights, hid a mystery older than anyone realized. People were vanishing, not into the streets, not into the shadows, but into their own reflections. The first reports were dismissed as urban legends. Commuters, students, and apartment dwellers claimed their reflections no longer mimicked them. A hand would wave when they didn't, a smile would linger after they looked away. And days later, the person would vanish. The victims shared common traits, all lived alone, all had mirrors in their bedrooms, all were seen last staring into glass. Detective Serena Vaughn first noticed the pattern after responding to a call from a distraught neighbor. Her client, a young man named Paul Richardson, swore he had seen his reflection wave goodbye, after he had turned around to leave the room. Within a week, 2 more cases emerged. Locked rooms. Shattered mirrors. Victims never seen outside their apartments. Each mirror appeared to have been broken from the inside, as though something had been trying to escape. The first victim's apartment was pristine, except for the shattered mirror leaning against the wall. Police found no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry. Only one clue, an antique auction sticker on the back of the frame, dating to 1892. As detectives investigated, they found a trail of victims linked to mirrors sold through online auctions, antique shops, and estate sales. Every mirror had a dark past, each involved in a sudden, inexplicable death years prior. And every one had been polished just before the next disappearance. Detective Vaughn brought in a team to catalog the mirrors. Each piece was tagged, analyzed, and inspected. Security footage from several apartments revealed something terrifying. Reflections staring at the camera after the person had walked away. Eyes following, mouths moving, shadows twisting in ways the real world couldn't replicate. One victim's video showed her reflection standing still in the living room after she left for work. When investigators replayed the footage frame by frame, her reflection raised a hand, pressed it against the glass, and whispered, "He waits." By early 2013, the city had a pattern, the mirrors themselves were cursed. Each victim's disappearance coincided with the mirror being in proximity. Paranormal experts theorized a sentient entity trapped within the glass, capable of mimicking and luring its victims inside. Detective Vaughn attempted to store the mirrors in evidence. But that night, Officer Liam Hargrove disappeared from the precinct. The only trace left behind, a note on his desk. Written in red marker. "He's still inside." The mirror was confiscated, sealed in a containment room. Investigators swore that even in the secure evidence storage, its surface moved, showing scenes of empty apartments and trembling victims. Some officers reported seeing their own reflections wave at them, long after leaving the room. To this day, the mirror man's influence persists. Anyone alone at night, staring into antique glass, may find themselves staring back, at something that doesn't belong. Something waiting. Every antique mirror carries a history. Some reflect what's in the room, and some reflect what waits inside. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, it sees you first. Would you dare look in that mirror after midnight? Some towns are meant to be forgotten. In 1985, the town of Lakeshade vanished beneath the waters of Millstone Lake, flooded to create a reservoir. Families were relocated. Streets, homes, and cemeteries drowned under 30 feet of water. But 35 years later, a severe drought revealed what had been hidden. And the secrets that never wanted to be forgotten. As the water receded, divers were sent to inspect the ruins. Streets were cracked, the steeple of the old church tilted just above the surface, and homes, frozen in time, were revealed beneath murky depths. But there was something unnatural about the silence. The air above the lake felt heavy, thick with unease. The first diver reported a strange sight, a child's toy floating aimlessly near a window. Then another, a skeleton, seated upright at a dining table, its mouth filled with stones. When more dives were conducted, the pattern was horrifying. Skeletons in every home, all mouths stuffed with smooth river stones, as if someone had tried to silence them forever. Local elders told the tale. Before the flooding, a woman known as Martha Whitaker had cursed the town. Her daughter had drowned tragically, and Martha swore that no soul would ever rest in Lake Shade, alive or dead. She sprinkled stones at funerals, muttered incantations near water, and warned neighbors that anyone who ignored her would be claimed by the lake. Historians dismissed it as folklore, until the divers found it wasn't just superstition. Every skeleton's position was unnatural, posed, controlled. It was as though they had been arranged after death, to mimic life, or to obey some unseen force. Underwater cameras captured what no human eye could see in real time. Shadows moved among the ruins, swimming unnaturally fast. Faint, echoing cries emanated from houses, as if the dead were trying to speak through the water. One diver panicked and surfaced, insisting that something brushed past his leg, not a fish, not a current, but something alive, yet unseen. Experts in paranormal phenomena theorized that the souls of Lakeshade's residents were trapped, tethered to the stones forced into their mouths. By nightfall, the lake seemed calm. But the locals knew better. They reported strange ripples, appearing in the exact center of the water every night at midnight. No wind, no boats, no animals, just a single, perfect ripple rising from the depths. Some brave or foolish enough to approach the ripple claimed they heard whispers calling their names. Others said the lake glowed faintly, revealing distorted shapes of buildings and figures below. When the lake eventually refilled, the cries stopped, or so the living thought. But every night, at exactly midnight, a single ripple forms on the water's surface. Fishermen swear that if you stare too long, the water shows you what lies beneath, faces frozen in fear, hands pressing upward, mouths full of stones, and eyes begging for release. Lakeshade is gone. Streets and homes vanished underwater, claimed by the reservoir. But the lake remembers. And every midnight, if you are listening, you might hear your name whispered from beneath the surface. Would you listen if the lake whispered your name? Every one of these cases defies reason. Every clue brings more questions than answers. We've walked through forests where voices call your name, apartments where shadows live independently, highways haunted by the long dead, churches consumed by fire and ash, mirrors that trap the living, and lakes that whisper with the voices of the drowned. And yet, none of them are fully explained. Maybe the dead aren't gone. Maybe they're still trying to be heard. Maybe the world we know is just a thin veil, and on the other side, some things never let go. So tell me, which of these stories do you believe was truly supernatural? Was it the girl by the lake, the hitchhiker on Route 87, the mirror man, or the shadows we never fully understood? The truth is, we may never know. If you're brave enough to keep listening, subscribe to Midnight Tales. Because next time, we'll uncover the truth about the ones who haunt the living.